Nothing worse than being a woman in this business. I sometimes wish I was African American, because I think at least people don't bash them afterwards when they say something about a reality which is very hard for a woman to open it. I think even hard. I think it's probably the hardest to be a woman because feminists is probably something that people hate above all.
You cringed, I cringed, we all cringed together. But what if I told you that what this person was talking about was actually something quite common when it comes to human groups? Let me explain. Hi, my name is Mamobo Ogoro, social psychologist and founder of GERM. And if you want to learn how to unify across differences, make sure you're subscribing to our channel. Horizontal hostility is a social psychological phenomena that refers to the negative behaviors that occurs between individuals or groups who are of similar status, dominance, or power. It can happen, for example, when individuals from underrepresented group or marginalized background perpetuate discrimination, oppression, or even hate against those who may be of a similar status. In the scenario that we saw earlier, this was something that was blatantly obvious within the screen sector or within Hollywood, but it's something that occurs within many, many social groups in Ireland and beyond. This behavior not only undermines the credibility or the experiences of those in different and diverse communities where they may lie, but it does not let us look at the root of the problem. The root of the problem is those who hold power. Horizontal hostility is this idea that rather than looking up to where the power holds and those who hold the resources, the power, the actual things that can allow us to create change, we start to look at each other, particularly when we come from underrepresented communities. We start to look at each other and we start to blame each other or scapegoat each other for usually limited resources, limited status, limited power. But there are some ways that we kind of can overcome this and can start to look to each other and unify across our differences so we can actually create positive change between ourselves. The phenomena of horizontal hostility can be observed in different places, for example, the workplace as well, particularly when it comes to different peers, when they're trying to compete for resources, promotions, negotiations, etc. Overcoming horizontal hostility requires a lot of work, a lot of compromise, and a lot of awareness and communication for us to, again, unify across those differences. So here are some steps so we can do this and we can start to overcome horizontal hostility. 1, recognizing the issue. When you start to feel a bit anxious, jealous, or even someone in a different space of the same status as you, that is when horizontal hostility is starting to come in. So you need to acknowledge that horizontal hostility exists in your environment, in your workplace, and in your community as well. Understanding those sentiments, understanding when people, even in your group, are starting to say, hey, these guys over and over there are getting this and we're not getting this. Start to acknowledge it. Number 2, promoting awareness, educating individuals about horizontal hostility and also educating those within your community, within your group as well, that there is this hostility between those of similar status, particularly in underrepresented communities. So we can start to understand, break those boundaries, break those divisions, and effectively unify. And fostering a culture of respect and collaboration as a result often encourages us to open up these discussions and open up a dynamic and inclusive environment where all different types of diversity can exist. And number 3, encourage communication. We always say communication. We want to call the communication. But when there is this hostility between groups, between resources, communication and talking to each other is key. Create opportunities for dialogue amongst different colleagues, different communities. And when there is this sort of tension or hostility between yourselves, try to have conversation and understanding. Rather than looking at each other, let's start looking at the powers that be, those who hold the power, those who have the resources that can make all of us thrive. Encourage people in your community or even your team members to express their concerns, their frustrations, and their aspirations when it comes to constructing a place where we all can belong. And this is something that is hugely essential in this place. Number 4, providing conflict resolution workshops, training, and opportunities for those who are in this position to engage with each other. Obviously, subtle plug, GERM does this through our intercultural training. It's a huge part of intercultural competence and communication, but offering workshops, training sessions, and deliveries in terms of intercultural competence, intercultural communication, and conflict management is essential to equip communities and to equip your colleagues and your employees with the necessary skills to navigate horizontal hostility and even disagreements when it comes to the resources that are at play. So it's super important to create that peaceful and collaborative environment. When I think about horizontal hostility myself, I think about this side of need for power and for status, if you get what I mean. But oftentimes when we are rooting for that power and status, it is not actually creating a liberation and a freedom for all of us. When we're in the space of tension, particularly when we come from underrepresented communities and battling for each other for those resources and powers, we're not looking at those who hold the power. We're not looking upwards to see how we can actually spread, not power, but those resources, spread that change for every one of us and be in a space of solidarity. So I kind of urge you to, anytime you are feeling that yourself, use some of those steps to actually engage with this sort of feelings, engage with that initial hostility that you may be feeling in this space, and ultimately try to take those steps towards eventually understanding and eventually unifying across those differences from those with other groups.